My boyfriend says I can't have male friends in my own home because I'm at risk. But he goes out drinking all night, lets women grind on him, and calls it fine because he's a man. Am I crazy, or is this completely unhinged? I'm 33 female and my partner is 33 male, and one of the biggest ongoing issues in our relationship is how differently we view friendships between men and women. But to even explain why this matters so much to me, I feel like I need to start with some background about who I am and where I come from because it shapes everything about how I see relationships and people. I grew up in a small market town in England, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and there's really no such thing as anonymity. My teachers taught my mom, people are cousins in ways you can't even trace, and your life is never really private. Over my 33 years, I've gone through a number of extremely traumatic events, and because of that, I've developed quite complex mental health needs. I've been on and off medication since I was about 16, and I've spent just as long going in and out of therapy. I'm currently in weekly therapy, and it's taken years to find the right person, especially navigating the NHS system. But I finally feel like I've found someone I connect with, and I'm starting to make real, tangible progress. One thing I will say is that despite everything, I've always had a strong support system around me. The people in my town have known me since I was a child, and even though my struggles have been very visible, they've always shown up for me. There's something about growing up alongside the same people your entire life that creates this quiet safety net. I know, without a doubt, that if I needed help, there would be people there for me. I was also diagnosed as autistic later in life, which explained so much about how I've always experienced the world. Social situations have always been incredibly difficult for me. I struggle with things that seem to come naturally to others. Where to look when someone is speaking, when it's my turn to talk, how much to say, and whether I'm saying the right thing at all. I constantly overthink everything. Am I sharing too much? Not enough? Do I look engaged? Do I even have anything meaningful to add? Because of that, I developed this default way of existing in social settings where I would just become a listener. I learned the cues, when to nod, when to ask a follow-up question, how to keep a conversation flowing without really being part of it. It could take months for me to feel comfortable enough to actually join in properly, and even then, it depended heavily on how patient and understanding the other people were. As a child, this made me feel incredibly lost, so I threw myself into sports instead. Back then, most sports were very male-dominated: football, cricket, rugby, and that's where I ended up spending most of my time. Looking back now, I can see why I gravitated towards those spaces. There was a kind of simplicity to the friendships I formed there that I didn't find anywhere else. Most of my friendships growing up were with boys, and those interactions felt much easier for me to navigate. Conversations were surface level and focused on whatever we were doing in the moment, usually the game we were about to play. There wasn't the same expectation of emotional depth or constant communication. Nothing was overanalyzed, nothing was stored away and brought back up later. It felt light, easy, and safe. For the first time, I felt like I had some kind of freedom socially. I didn't have to overthink every word or expression. I didn't feel like I was constantly being evaluated. I could just exist in the moment without the pressure I felt in other social settings. And because of that, I started to come out of my shell in a way I hadn't before. I wasn't just the quiet girl anymore. I became louder, more playful, more confident. I leaned into being a bit daft, a bit goofy, and I realized that making people laugh gave me a sense of control and belonging that I hadn't had before. I ended up becoming this kind of bridge between the boys and the girls at school. The girls would come to me asking about the boys, wanting help getting their attention or figuring out what they were like. The boys would ask me to pass along numbers or messages. I was everyone's go-between, everyone's wingman, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a defined role in a social group. And honestly, that was enough for me. Things started to change when I hit around 14. More trauma came into my life, and at the same time, I had less guidance than I probably needed. That's when I found alcohol. It felt like the answer to everything I had been struggling with. It quieted the noise in my head, took away the constant overthinking, and gave me something I had always struggled to find: confidence. For the first time, I felt like I could show people who I really was, or at least who I thought I could be. I became louder, more outgoing, more fun. It felt like I had finally cracked the code to socializing. But what I didn't realize at the time was that it was slowly becoming the only way I could socialize. It stopped being something I used occasionally and turned into something I relied on completely. At the same time, more traumatic events kept happening around me. Emotional abuse, physical abuse, adult abuse, and situations that no teenager should ever have to experience. There were deaths in my family, including multiple hit-and-run accidents and a murder-suicide that ended up being plastered all over national TV and newspapers. On top of that, my parents went through a very public divorce, followed by my dad going through what I can only describe as a midlife crisis that played out on local Facebook groups for everyone to see. There was no escaping any of it. Our lives were everywhere, on screens, in conversations, in headlines. It felt like the entire town was watching everything unfold in real time. And I didn't cope well. I became reckless. I started running away from situations instead of dealing with them. I abandoned friendships that had once meant everything to me. I pushed away the people who genuinely cared, the same people who had supported me growing up. I spiraled deeper and deeper into depression, to the point where I made several attempts to take my own life. I completely lost myself. But even through all of that chaos, there was something that never really disappeared. The people I had grown up with, the boys I used to play football with, were still there. Even if it was from a distance, there was always this quiet, steady sense of care. No matter how self-destructive I became, no matter how much I pushed people away, there was always someone ready to offer a hand if I needed it. What stands out to me the most is that none of them ever crossed a line. Not once. They never made a pass at me, never made inappropriate comments, never even gave me a look that suggested anything other than pure friendship. And considering everything they had seen, how public my struggles were, how vulnerable I had been, it would have been easy for things to go in a different direction. But they didn't. If anything, it felt like the opposite. Like there was this unspoken sense of protection around me. They had watched me fall apart, seen it all laid bare in the most public way possible, and all they seemed to want was for me to feel safe. Eventually, something in me shifted. Around the age of 21, I started to get my life back on track. I stopped drinking, completely on my own, and I stopped using harder substances. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but I made the decision to face things head-on instead of running from them. I still smoke weed now, but I have a much healthier, more aware relationship with it. Considering where I was, it feels manageable and not something that controls me. Since then, I've had relationships with people who understood my friendships. Past partners were comfortable with the fact that most of my close friends were men. They met them, had drinks with them, came round for a smoke or to play games. It was always easy because, to me, it was so obviously platonic. These weren't new friendships or random people, they were people who had known me my entire life, people who had stood by me through the worst moments. It always felt clear that what we had was built on history, trust, and care, not anything romantic or inappropriate. And because of that, it never felt like something that needed to be questioned or defended. Fast forward to now, and my current relationship feels like something I'm constantly trying to stabilize, like I'm walking across ice that could crack at any moment. Volatile is the word that keeps coming back to me. He was my first and only experience using Tinder. He's not from my town, but not too far either. From the very beginning, we were complete opposites. On our first date, he actually laughed and said, "I'm a chav and you're like a Tim Burton character." And he wasn't wrong. Everything about us is different. Music, films, the way we dress, how we see the world. But somehow, at first, that difference felt exciting. Refreshing even. He had patience for me in a way I wasn't used to. My awkwardness, my struggle to communicate, the way I stumble over words, it didn't seem to bother him. He made me feel safe, or at least I thought he did. I liked that he introduced me to things outside my usual comfort zone. It felt like growth. But over time, something shifted. It started small. Whenever I tried to share something I liked, a film, a song, even just something that made me happy, it would turn into a critique. Not just of the thing itself, but of me. What I liked said something wrong about who I was. At first I brushed it off, but it kept happening. Slowly, I stopped sharing. Then it got worse. He stopped wanting to hear about my day. My therapy sessions, my work, anything personal. He'd shut it down. He'd literally tell me, "Go tell someone else." And the truth is, the only someone else I've ever really had has been my friends, who happen to mostly be men. That's when the real problem began. Suddenly, my lifelong friendships became an issue. According to him, men and women can't be friends. Full stop. In his eyes, men only want one thing, and every single one of my friends is just waiting for their chance with me. It doesn't matter that I've known these people since childhood. It doesn't matter that they've seen me at my worst, protected me, never once crossed a line. None of that counts to him. He's told me he doesn't want me seeing them in my own home. And that's where it really hits me, because I'm not someone who can just go out whenever I want. Since 2017, my physical health has declined a lot. I'm now mostly housebound. My home is my only social space, and he's trying to control who I can have in it. What makes it harder to understand is his own friendships. The stories he tells me about his friends genuinely scare me. Cheating, disrespecting women, violence, heavy drinking, drugs. It's everything I worked so hard to escape from in my early 20s. And yet he keeps them in his life without question. His reasoning? Time. He says once someone's been in your life for years, they become part of you. But somehow that logic doesn't apply to me. My friends who have known me just as longer even are treated like threats. His are treated like family. And then there was the night that really stuck with me. He went out with them, which I already felt uneasy about. When he came home, instead of just telling me he had a good time, he was almost proud, talking about how women had been grinding on him, dancing on him, like it was something I should be impressed by. It hurt. A lot more than I expected. Not just because of what happened, but because of the double standard. I'm expected to cut off innocent, platonic friendships out of respect, but he can put himself in situations like that and brush it off like it's nothing. When I told him it upset me, his response was something I can't seem to shake. He said he's a man, that he can do what he wants because he's safe, that no one can force anything on him, that if cheating ever happened, it would be his choice, not something that could happen to him. The way he said it, it wasn't reassuring. It was cold, detached, like he was explaining a rule of the world I was supposed to just accept. This is where everything really starts to feel impossible to justify, even in my own head. My problem now? I'm not allowed to see my friends the way I always have. The normal, harmless way. A cup of tea, maybe a joint, some music, sitting around talking rubbish like we've done for years. Nothing wild, nothing inappropriate, just comfort, familiarity, safety. But apparently, that's not okay anymore.
Why?
Because they're men. That's it. That's the entire argument. The moment that word enters the conversation, nothing else I say matters. It doesn't matter that I've known them most of my life. It doesn't matter that they've supported me through some of the darkest moments I've ever lived through. It doesn't matter that I trust them more than I trust most people in the world. They are men. Therefore, I am in danger. The way he phrases it makes it feel even worse. You want to have men come and sit in your flat. Like I'm doing something inappropriate. Like there's some hidden intention behind it. But that's not what it is at all. I just want my friends to come over because I physically can't go out the way other people can. After 2 major foot surgeries, even leaving the house comfortably is a challenge some days. What am I supposed to say to that? Because the worst part is, there's a tiny piece of truth buried in what he's saying. As a woman, I know that any man could be a threat. That's just the reality we grow up with. But that includes everyone, even him. And yet somehow, I'm expected to treat my safe, proven friendships like risks, while blindly accepting his behavior without question. And now we're at today. It's Bank Holiday Friday. Basically an excuse for everyone to go out drinking all day. His friends invited him out, and I told him honestly that I wasn't entirely comfortable with it. Not because I want to control him, but because of everything I've seen and heard about those friendships. Still, I'm actively working on this in therapy, trying to build healthier coping mechanisms, trying not to let fear dictate everything. After a lot of arguing, we reached a compromise. He'd go out around lunchtime, stay for 5 or 6 hours, and then head back to a friend's house nearby instead of turning it into a full day and night binge. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a step toward mutual respect. Like maybe we were trying to meet in the middle. Then this morning, he dropped it on me like it was nothing. Plans might change. His friend is a bit rogue. He might not come back early. It could turn into an all-nighter after all. And just like that, the compromise meant nothing. But according to him, it's fine. Because he's a man. He can stay out all night, drink excessively, be around people I genuinely don't trust, and I'm supposed to just accept it. Meanwhile, I'm not even allowed to have my own friends over while he's gone. I'm expected to sit there, alone, and get over it. If I want to see my friends, I should go outside. Despite the fact that leaving the house isn't always easy or even possible for me. The double standard is so obvious, it almost feels insulting. He gets freedom, autonomy, and zero accountability because he's a man. I get restrictions, suspicion, and isolation because I'm a woman. And what hurts the most is the implication behind it all, that after everything I've been through, everything I've survived, I somehow can't be trusted to judge who is safe to have in my life. That I would knowingly surround myself with people who could harm me. That couldn't be further from the truth. The people he's trying to push out of my life are the ones who never hurt me. The ones who stood by me when everything else was falling apart. They've built lives, families, stability. They are good, decent people. And yet I'm being made to feel like I'm the problem. So now I'm sitting here asking myself the question I never thought I'd have to ask. Am I actually wrong for thinking this is completely unfair, or have I just been slowly convinced that this kind of control is normal?